Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you've had a wonderful spring break. I'm going to try something new today and try to record a little mini genetics lesson and see how it works. And you guys just let me know if you can hear everything and see everything and all that. Okay, first of all, I miss you guys. I can't believe it's been so long. It actually feels very weird teaching from home. But I hope you guys are safe and sound and healthy. So let's go ahead and start. You guys know a little bit about genetics already, I'm sure. So this flip chart has already been shared with you. These are the vocabulary words that we'll use the first part of this lesson. So heredity is just when you pass traits from parents to offspring. And remember, everything has parents. It's not just people, babies, plants do, fungi do, earthworms, all kinds of things. So it's not just people that have parents. And usually we have two contributors of genes, like half your genes come from your mom, half from your dad. Same from all other living things. So the study of heredity is the unit called genetics. There's actually a branch of biology that does that. This guy that I'm getting ready to tell you a little story about, his name is Mendel. He was named the father of genetics many years after he died due to his contributions. And I'm going to post a video later, a TED Talk, to let you get a little bit more details on Mendel. Okay, the next one is traits. These are characteristics that you inherit. So obviously your hair color, whether you have freckles or not, all those kind of things are traits, but it is also things that we don't typically think about. Like the fact that your heart has 4 chambers to it, or that we have 5 fingers and fingernails and those kind of things. Okay, you already know this term. A gamete is a sex cell. So this is, in humans, sperm and egg, and this is what gives you your traits. And then fertilization happens the moment that sperm and egg unite, and is at this time when all of your traits are actually determined, as soon as the sperm and egg unite. So the next one, alleles, is a term that I don't use enough, but it's a form of a gene. And you have 2 for each one. So obviously you get an allele for your hair color from your mom, and you get an allele for your hair color from your dad. So 2 alleles make up a gene. And then dominant and recessive, which if we could have done the activity together, it would have made a little bit more sense. But dominant traits are usually more powerful, and all I mean by that is you only need one of those to show up. Brown hair, for an example, is a dominant trait, and we represent those with a capital letter, as I'll show you in a minute. And then a recessive trait is the weaker gene. The only way recessive traits show up is if you receive 2 of them. So as an example, blonde hair is recessive. So the only way, if you know somebody who has blonde hair, the only way they receive that blonde hair is if they got the gene for being blonde from their mom and their dad. Okay, on the next screen, phenotype and genotype, students mix up all the time. Phenotype, I want you to focus on the pH. Physical characteristics. So if I say that I had brown eyes, that is my phenotype. Okay, genotype are the actual genetics of the organism, and I'll show you how Mendel wrote those in a minute. Okay, the next 2 are probably the most important terms in genetics, homozygous and heterozygous. You should remember homo and hetero from other science courses. Homo means same, so that means you received 2 genes that are the same. Okay, and hetero means different, so that means you received 1 dominant gene and 1 recessive gene. So as I told you a minute ago, they're represented by letters. So these are both capital A's, so that's homozygous. But these are both little a's, that's also homozygous. And this one, you have a capital 1 and a lowercase 1, so that would be heterozygous. So the P generation are your parents, the F1 generation is your first set of offspring, F2 is second, and so on. I'll show you that in a minute. And then the most important skill to do in genetics probably is being able to do a Punnett Square. And it's basically a tool where you can figure out what are the chances of a person having this or that, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Mendel. So Mendel was an Austrian monk, and he lived in a monastery. He was in charge of the gardens at the monastery. So they basically ate what they grew. They didn't go to a local grocery store and get food and stuff. So what he noticed while he was in the gardens is that a lot of the offspring had characteristics just like their parents. And then he also noticed that every once in a while, he would get an offspring that didn't look like the parents at all. So the main plant that he was interested in are pea plants. And I know you're saying, why in the world would he choose pea plants? Well, the main reason is they grew very quickly. So he could look at their traits. And of course, they could eat them afterwards. So that was the cool thing about that. But they had a bunch of traits, which are listed right here, that he could study. Did the seed look round or wrinkled? Were they yellow or green? I'm sure you've opened up a can of peas and seen some random yellow one in there. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just yellow. Were the flowers purple or white? Were the pods full or kind of vacuum packed looking? Were the plants long or short? Were the flowers on the ends or on the sides? And then also, was the pod green or yellow? So what he did to force these plants to mate together, which is kind of interesting, is he cross-pollinated them. So he would take a paintbrush, he would dip it on his tongue just to get it damp, and then he would get the pollen off of one plant and put it onto the female part of the second plant. And then he would cut off the male parts of this flower. So basically, he forced this purple flower pea plant to mate with this white flower pea plant, and then he could determine what happened as a result of that. Okay, so let's look at this one here. This is his first generation. So he crossed a tall plant and a short plant. And you and I, of course, would think that all of these plants would be medium height. Well, that's not how it works in pea plants. So if he did a tall and a short, what does that tell you if all the offspring are tall? It tells me that being tall is dominant over being short. So all of these plants ended up being tall. He actually thought that all the other monks were screwing with him and they messed up his experiment and stuff. He did it over 100 times. And every time he did it, they still became tall. So what he kind of figured out is that tall must be dominant. So he actually used a capital T for tall. Okay, and he called this one true breeding because it's nothing but tall. Now, I would think he would use an S and an S for short, but he used lowercase t for this one so he wouldn't confuse the traits. So let's pretend this is the dad, okay? What is the only gene they can contribute to all their offspring? Well, the only thing he can give every one of them is the fact that they're tall. They have nothing else to give, okay? Now, how about the mama in this case? The only gene she has available is short. So she would give the little t. Okay, sorry, this takes a while without a pen. All right, so let's use those terms we talked about. The dad is homozygous tall. The mom is homozygous short. And all of the offspring are heterozygous. But remember, the capital letter is more powerful than the lowercase letter. So all of these guys would end up being tall. Okay? So then what he did, he's like, okay, I'm going to cover these with a net and let them pollinate themselves and see what happens. So guys, tell me what happened. In the third generation, this guy's tall, this guy's tall, this guy's tall, but what about this one? He's short. So I hope you can tell the only way that this guy here could be short is that two of these alleles here had to join together. So what he found out is every time you crossed a heterozygous plant times a heterozygous plant, there's a 25% chance you're going to get a short plant. So everything in genetics is based on 25%. So 25% would be big T tall. 25 and 25, which is 50, would be big T, little t tall, and 25% chance that they'll be short. Okay, so this is it in general here. This is the parent generation. Here's the first set of offspring, and then here's the second set of offspring, so F2. Okay, so it's interesting that you end up with a short plant just like the grandmother, so it kind of skipped a generation. And if you've ever heard that term, skipping a generation, this is kind of how it works. Okay, all right, so let's just practice this a little bit here. The homozygous ones are the ones that the letters are exactly the same. So this one is, this one is, this one is, okay? And those are homozygous dominant because they're capital letters. So let's do the homozygous recessive ones. Okay, so then the ones that are remaining are the ones that we call heterozygous. So those are very important terms. Okay, all right, genotype are the letters, phenotype are the characteristics. So blonde hair, widow's peak, blue eyes, red hair, tongue roller, brown hair, those are all phenotypes, and the remaining letters are genotypes. Okay, skip that one. All right, so guys, I attached this one for you to actually try. So let me just show you a couple of them and I'm going to let you do the rest. So heterozygous for long eyelashes. Remember, hetero means different. So let's find eyelashes up here. So that means I'm going to use an L. Hetero means different. So I'm going to write a big L and a little l. Okay? All right, homozygous for a straight thumb. Well, straight thumb is right here, and I'm going to use a T. So homo means same, so that's going to be big T, big T. Okay, so I'll let y'all practice that. All right, and then these, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to write the phenotype. So big E, little e. Big E up here is free earlobes. So I would write free here. Okay? All right, so I'll let you work on that. All right, now, long after Mendel was dead, this guy named Reginald Punnett came along. He's like, there's got to be an easier way to do these crosses, and he came up with something called a Punnett Square. So what you do is you put the parents' genes here, and you put the dad's genes over here, one letter at a time. So let's say this mama is white, so we're going to put a big W, okay, and we're going to pretend that this sheep is black. So if you guys remember, black would be the opposite of that. So that would be little w, little w. So what you do is you bring this one down, this one over. So in this case, they're all going to be a big W, a little w. Therefore, they're going to be white. Okay, so now let's pretend we have some incestuous sheep here, and we're going to let these two mate. So their genotype is going to be heterozygous, big W, little w, big W, little w for both. Okay, so what you find out, big, 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 little, big, little, and then this one, there's that 25% chance is little, little. So this sheep is going to be black just like its grandmother up here. Okay, so there's that 25% chance. Same thing happens with guinea pigs. So I'm just going to do this one here. This time black is dominant. Okay, so this one would be heterozygous. Let's do a B for black. So big B, little b, big B, little b. Okay, so here, what genotype would you get? Bring this one down, this one over. Big B, big B. Okay, this one, big B, little b. This one, big B, little b, and this one, little b, little b. Okay, so now what color will these guinea pigs be? Big B, obviously black. Big B, little b, they have the gene for both, but big B is dominant, so also black. Big B, little b, black, and how about this one? Little b, you're going to end up with a white guinea pig. So, two black ones can actually create a white one. It just depends on the genetics. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to get you guys to practice a couple things, and then I'm going to also do a lesson on blood types today. Thank you. Hope you guys are well. Let me know if you have any questions.